everybody, we are live again. So it's Sunday and I am super excited, as you can see on my face. It's completely reflecting. So we have very special guest today, Albert Bellamy. So why I'm excited, there is a reason behind it. So he has a complete diverse personality. He has been into military service in US Marine Corps. So he has served over there for 23 years long. He just got over it, and completely after fulfilling his duties over there, he is now getting into analytics, and he is now a business analyst intern at Google. So you see, I have a reason to be excited enough. So yes, without much ado, let me just invite him over the stream, and let's talk about his life, his transition, his interest in data, and a lot more. Yes. Hello, Albert.
Hey, Nikita, how are you?
I am good, and yeah, it's awesome. It's a special day that I was able to figure out that how to invite you over the stream. So people want to know about you. We can clearly see the excitement. So please go ahead and share something about yourself, your career, and your interest.
Sure. I was laughing during your intro. I love how you put that I just got over being in the Marine Corps. That's really a good way of putting it. Some people say being a Marine is a sickness. So it's definitely a state of mind, that's for sure. So yeah, I technically am still in the Marine Corps. I don't have any day-to-day responsibilities there. I was lucky enough here at the end of my career to qualify for, like you said, an internship. So still employed by the Marine Corps, still being paid by the Marine Corps, but their job for me is to work at Google, which is amazing. I've only been doing that for a couple of weeks now, but it's intense. Everyone there is so talented and so welcoming, and I have real analytics work to do, which is wonderful. It's not just kind of some internships where they sort of put you in a corner and say, okay, study by yourself. So that's wonderful. That's going on right now. I live in North Carolina, which is, for people not super familiar with U.S. geography, is on the East Coast, about mid-Atlantic region, so about halfway down. Good thing about being a Marine is you're almost always on the beach. So we live right by some very nice beaches. I'm married to my wife. We just had our 20-year wedding anniversary, and we have three teenage sons. All three currently in high school. My oldest son is just about to graduate, and he's going to head off to college. So okay. Life is pretty good here.
Okay, you have 3 teenage sons, and you certainly don't look like, because how do you maintain that? How do you maintain that fitness?
Oh, I mean, they've made all the hair fall out between the teenage sons and the Marine Corps. So you see, when I show you some pictures, I used to have quite a bit more hair than I do now, but. No, it's just I think the Marine Corps lifestyle, if you embrace it fully, just fitness and kind of a disciplined and regimented lifestyle. If you kind of moderate both the positive and negative things in your life, and just maintain a positive outlook. We Marines tend to be a bit cynical, but we see every problem as solvable. And so I think when you adopt that mindset, you generally become a fairly positive person in general.
Okay. So my next question would be, what was your basically a role in Marine? So what were you doing there? What was your service? And what was you? I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do in Marines, but what was you specifically doing?
When I joined in way back in 1998, I was an enlisted Marine because I had dropped out of college. And so I didn't have a degree, which is a requirement to be an officer. So I enlisted, and they assigned me into logistics. And so I did logistics and supply chain analytics, although I didn't really know that's what it was at the time, for 9 years. And then I went into some leadership training, and some of my instructors said that I had the aptitude and ability to become a Marine officer. So I was lucky enough to qualify for one of those problems. That was at the height of the war, and we were kind of surging up personnel. So they were looking to find as many officers as they could from the enlisted ranks, and I became one of them. So becoming an officer, I got a new assignment, and I chose to be an artillery officer because we just it was a way that I could lead Marines in combat while also having a mental challenge. And just when you're slinging 100-pound explosives 30 kilometers downrange and expected to put them into a minute sized target, the math is it can be quite overwhelming. The kind of the mental challenge of how to solve the problem, how to put different munitions in different places, how to attack different targets. All of that appealed to me. And again, didn't know it, but I was gravitating towards some sort of analytical problem. So, and now I've been an artillery officer with some kind of variety of assignments for the last 14 years. During that time, I went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan, did not see much combat. There was, by the time I got there wasn't a whole lot of combat left, thank God. But yeah, it's been a very interesting ride. One of the most interesting assignments that I had recently was I got to spend 3 years at Manpower. And again, drawn into analytics, I did people analytics, which I think is the term du jour now, and trying to figure out human behavior and responses to retention incentives. So you pay Marines a certain amount of money, will they re-enlist? Do they hate job A and love job B? Do they? And just working through that every day was really a fascinating problem. And then I'm back down in North Carolina and was leading and training Marines for a couple of years until I decided that it was time to move on to the next phase of my life.
Yeah. So people in the comment section, they are asking if it's pre-recorded session or live session. So I want to let everybody know it's a live session. They are free to post any questions, any comments in the comment box. Please utilize it. We also feel energetic and bombarded when comment section is full. So yes, guys, you are free to do that. So go ahead. Okay. I see a lot of support and excitement in the comment box as well. Everybody is geared up. So am I. So with this, next question is, what is one thing that you really, really admire being a Marine Corps, or the things that you have done? One thing that you still, in awe of that thing, and you really love doing it.
So one of the coolest things that I got to do was, while I was at Manpower, right at the very end, I qualified for a program that develops military liaisons for DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And they're the ones that develop all of the cutting edge technology for the military, much of which eventually becomes cutting edge technology for society writ large. They invented the internet, they invented stealth planes, they invented night vision, I think, and just an insane number of things that are now a lot of cell phone technology, a lot of satellite phone technology was developed by DARPA. And so I got to spend 3 months there and just flying around the country, watching some of their programs and getting involved in the future of rocket artillery and various other things. Surprisingly, not too many things that I'm not allowed to talk about. Most of the stuff was you can find it on the internet. You can find it on DARPA's website. But that was really just an incredible experience. And kind of as my career has wound down, the number of things that I've been able to do on that high level that just kind of blow your mind while you're doing them and afterwards is really cool. So yeah, 3 months at DARPA. Watching robots and advanced technology and the future of warfare and the future of tech in general was an incredible experience.
Okay, awesome. And I'm sure everybody wants to everybody wants to visit that experience again. If you just walk us through some of the pictures, some of the memories that you have collected over the years, so that will be amazing.
So keep in mind, a lot of these pictures are a bit old.
Okay. We don't have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is, you see it okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so this is back during my lieutenant days, the picture in the gun turret there with all the gear, that was when we were training to go to Iraq. The one with the giant smile on the green field there, that was right after I was pepper sprayed. So the smile is a bit ironic, but I don't think I could even see the photographer in that one. These are all pictures from either from Iraq or training to go to Iraq. The one on the top right there is we had a mission to go find, that's called a scan eagle, and it crashed near our combat outpost. So we had to drive out in the middle of the night and go pick it up. And so it was very exciting. It was one of the few real missions we actually got to do. So you can see we're quite happy about that one. So I figured I'd give you one in the full dress regalia there. That middle picture is when I was leaving my family to go to Afghanistan. It was a pretty tough day, but a fantastic picture. And then that last one was when I got to be a battery commander. That was one of our training exercises in Okinawa. And then a couple more training pictures. That one in the middle really was an incredible exercise we got to do with the Japanese ground defense force. And that was off the coast of California, a place called San Clemente Island. And that was the public affairs officer standing there with me, and one of his photographers was trying to figure out where to take pictures, and he snapped at one of us surveying the beach where the landing craft were going to come ashore. That one made the papers. That was a pretty cool picture.
It looks so cool. Seriously, amazing. And yeah, a lot of comments for these amazing pictures. So, I have two guys here. They are very young. They are still pursuing their college engineering third year, and they were pretty excited to join you. So one between those is Harshil, who I'm going to present right away on screen. So he's from aircraft, Air Force background. His father is in Air Force, so he was very excited. He could relate with the profession, but in India. So he had a couple of questions to ask you because he can relate the defense background and the data, because his aspirations are to get into data. Okay. So here we go. Harshil.
Good evening, Albert. As ma'am said, I'm currently pursuing my BTech in computer science degree in specialization in DevOps. So it's my pleasure to share such a platform with you. You served your country for almost 20 years. Now, you also got an intern at Google as a data analyst. Not only that, your whole background revolved around the data analysis part. You had the opportunity to retire and live your life. Instead, you started to hustle and relive your 20s again. So, briefly analyzing your defense work routine and how you started the journey towards getting an intern at Google. Tell us some things like the difficulties you faced, the roadmap of your journey, and last but not least, some guidance towards us young chaps.
So the roadmap. Yeah, I think usually where I trace it back to, just as a kid, I always wanted to know the numbers of things. I was kind of really obsessed with two things, and that was the military and math and statistics. And so I would read books, endless books about World War II and the technology that they used, and the history and the kind of interplay of armies and personalities. But I always obsessed over, you look at a picture of a B-17 bomber and how many machine guns does it have? Or you look at a picture of, an admiral's flagship and how many cannons does it have on it? How many guns are there? The Battle of Gettysburg, who had more men and why did they win or why did they lose in spite of a numerical advantage? That's always been forefront in my mind. And so when I didn't originally join the Marine Corps straight out of high school, I went to, from Ohio, which is in central part of the country. And so I went to Ohio University for a couple of years before I decided that wasn't for me. But one of the few classes that really resonated with me was one called Product and Operations Management. And I just remember we had to do a central project for that class, and we were assigned in groups. So if you can picture me, 1994, 95, I'm sitting at a table in the library with three other people, two men and a woman. And I was kind of the only nerdy one there. They were more athletic types. I was not a particularly athletic fellow at the time. The Marine Corps imparted that to me, but and they were there kind of bemoaning the fact that they had to do this project. And it was an operations project. It was, you had all these mathematical inputs, some certain restrictions, and you had to find efficiency. You had to find the most efficient way to ship products from one node to another, and you had a storage facility on the way, and the storage facility cost X. And you had to figure out the cheapest and most efficient way to get the products to market. It was a difficult project, but involved all of the things that we stress in data analytics. It's, a lot of math, a lot of logic, a lot of kind of heuristic back of the napkin type reasoning. But it was everything that I loved in a problem. And so I was just sitting there working feverishly, working with spreadsheets, which I don't think I'd ever done before, and just in hog heaven. I was so excited. And these three other people were just kind of staring at me in the library. And at one point, I remember one of the men looking at me and was like, "You actually enjoyed this, don't you?" Yeah, not going to lie. This is fun for me. And they basically just deferred to me. I wound up being the one that did 90% of the work on the project, which became a theme later on in life. But I just remember that it was so foreign to them that I would enjoy the challenge. And it was so like I couldn't understand why they didn't find it interesting. And I think that was the first. I didn't know what data analytics was at the time. It's gone through several name changes, obviously, in the last 25 years or so. And there was no opportunity to major in that at that time, especially at that school. Maybe they had it somewhere else. But I think it was the first time I realized, like, this is something that appeals to me, just kind of on a genetic level. I love this. And it kind of went from there throughout the military and throughout higher education.
Nice. So this was really inspiring, like how you, like, even though I can relate it very well, my dad is also in defense. The amount of focus you guys have is like immense. I cannot compare it to myself, even though I'm trying to get that level of focus in my life also. Now, moving forward, my second question for you is, like, we are a bunch of kids compared to your experience and age as well. So what is that one thing that you want to tell us, like your juniors, so that they don't repeat that mistakes and save themselves a lot of time? Like that one thing that you invested your time in and that you regret that you shouldn't invest your time in that.
So I would just say, working towards my master's thesis, I got some advice from someone who was finishing her master's. And she said the most important thing, at the time, my class was just deciding what to do our theses on. And she told us the most important thing about selecting your master's thesis topic, and I think it applies to any time that you want to do a data project and you have some freedom to decide what to do it on. Do your project on something that you already have a mountain of data. Because the biggest nightmare is to have a great idea. You fall in love with that idea. You really, really want to find the answer to a problem that is important and that's killing you. And then you realize that you can't get access to the data, or that it's going to take 6 months to get data, and by then you'll be bored and moved on to something else. The approach that I would advise to do data work is go get a mountain of data. Hopefully it's in something that's interesting. I don't want it to be like machine specs or something like that that's just dull to me. But go get a mountain of data. And then, as my stats professor used to say, just take it out and play with it. Just make little pictures with it, box plots and outliers and regression lines. Just see how it speaks to you. And then you'll figure out what you can do with it, or what kind of visualizations you can do. I think that on the entry level, when you're getting in and you're trying to figure out how to block and tackle, that's the best thing you can do. It's just, I have this massive data set. What problem can I solve with it? Not the other way around. Because when you're working and you're getting paid, then they're going to present you with problems and say, go solve this. And so that's when, that sort of pain is for. But yeah, for the study, go to Kaggle, find a data set, and then see what you can do with it. And you'll just save yourself a lot of pain and heartache and disappointment from going the other direction.
So Albert, just one thing here. You want to say getting your hands dirty is more important rather than reading through all the theoretical part and deciding if you like it or not. It's just they're playing around with data.
Okay. I love that you clarified that. Yes. So and absolutely, that's another great point that I see a lot of people going wrong. I did when I first started pivoting and starting to try and upskill. I got caught in kind of the class quagmire, and it can be very easy to get into a state where you're just treading water, and you're just taking one Udemy class after another, or Coursera or any of these MOOCs, which are great instruction, but there's no reinforcement mechanism. There's no proctored test at the end of it. There's no project that's going to be evaluated by an impartial third party. And there's no, you don't have to earn anything. You might go through a Udemy course and devote yourself to it and do exercises and work hard and learn a ton out of it. And I might go through the same Udemy course and just click while I'm watching TV over here, and it's done, and there's my certificate. The same for LinkedIn Learning. God bless LinkedIn Learning. God bless Udemy. That they're great things, but they are what you make of them. And so I see a lot of people saying, look at my Udemy certificate, ×1, ×2, ×3. And that's all they ever put on LinkedIn, which is a whole different subject, but it proves nothing. Now, if you say, look at this project that I just completed, which is my own work with visualizations and a brief, and maybe even a video of me delivering it to an audience, that would be amazing. And then you say, I did this project based on Jose Portilla's SQL Bootcamp on Udemy. That shows that you can take instruction through across the goal line, if you'll pardon an American sports expression, and do something with it. That nobody's holding a gun to your head. This is not a college class. This is you wanting to do data work. But that's what I would say. Don't get stuck in the spin cycle of doing endless classes, because that can become very self-soothing. You feel accomplished. They give you a certificate every time you complete one. But really you haven't accomplished much, because that knowledge will most likely not be retained unless you reinforce it with work.
Awesome. Self-soothing is the word, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So Harshil, do you have any other questions, or we are good?
It was really amazing to share such experience. Not share, because I almost gained everything from him. It was really amazing to get so much out of it. Thank you so much for having me on the platform.
Harsh, thanks for coming, man. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye, Harshil.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So I have a curiosity to ask you one question. Once upon a time, your headline on LinkedIn was like internet data superstar. What's the story behind that?
So my friends will have to pardon me. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was one of my friends from USO Transitions webinars. When I started doing the How to Get an Analytics Job podcast, I started listening. I started talking to John David Ariensen, the podcaster, and just leaving comments and asking him questions. Connected with him on LinkedIn. Then he took an interest in something I posted, and it sort of took off from there. Eventually, I ran the LinkedIn page for the podcast. and I became a guest a couple of times. So I think it was after either my first or my second guest appearance on the video channel, that I was having a conversation with someone, and they said jokingly, "Well, now you're an internet data analytics superstar." And I chuckled at that, and then I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna put that in my headline." And he said something on he basically dared me. Just said, "LOL, you won't." Sure enough, 5 minutes later, I said, "Check it," and there it was. So I think I was internet data analytics star at first, and then I think the second time I appeared on a podcast, I changed it to superstar. So I made my headline a little more serious at some point, since I think my second appearance was at the end of January. So I change my headline every month or so, just when I feel like tweaking it a little bit. When Kate Strachnyi was nice enough to put me on the leading data voices to follow on LinkedIn. The second time I put 2-time Datacated Data Voice to follow on there. So I think that's still on there. But every once in a while, I feel like being creative with it and tweaking it. But yeah, that was just too funny. I was like, yep, that's my official title now, Internet Data Analytics Superstar.
Okay, so I have one more headline for you.
Yeah.
If you just don't mind me telling you, it's like social media superstar. You are going to be a social media superstar,
Why not?
LinkedIn superstar.
So but it's funny, but it kind of points out that kind of a little bit of good-natured hubris goes a long way. So if you can just have confidence combined with some humor and a little irreverence, and sort of making fun of these titles that we give ourselves. Obviously, I don't think I'm a superstar. I'm certainly not a data analytics superstar. I've so much to learn. It's almost overwhelming. But it's everyone understands that it's tongue in cheek. Nobody's looking at that on my headline and saying, "Oh, this guy's full of himself." Kind of, but I certainly am not announcing that as legitimate. I am a superstar. So it shows that I have a sense of humor. It shows that I can kind of poke fun at myself. But it does give some reference to the fact that I am confident, and I think that I can kind of tackle anything, which is very appealing, I think, to an employer or someone that wants to work with you. That, hey, I want someone with that kind of confidence and cockiness to be on my team.
Okay, so we have one more name for you if you want to take it up. Networking superstar.
Let's do it.
Anyways.
I got nothing but time. We'll work them all through the headline at some point. You'll see a change today. I'll promise you that. Some element of that will be in there.
So before I invite Rakshit to ask you some questions, because he has some, we want to address one question on the way.
Sure.
Albert, where did you pick up your analytics skills, and what would be your suggestion for someone who wants to start a career in analytics?
It comes from everywhere. I think, like I talked about earlier, it just stems from a natural curiosity, which I don't know. I think it's beyond the scope of this interview to say whether that's something you sort of have to have from childhood or whether that's something you can develop. I think the best analysts probably just have that in their DNA, that they're just people that ask questions about stuff and want to know the answers. So that's kind of where it stems from. As far as learning it, I've just taken it from so many places that I don't know. I'm not in a position where I could say, here's your roadmap. Because I've answered that question before by saying, yeah, just do it like I did. Go to college for 2 years, drop out, join the Marine Corps. 23 years later, you're good. So obviously that's a joke, but it just comes from everywhere. And I've drawn analytics experience and things that I can think back on from like my earliest days in the Marine Corps, from that product and operations class at Ohio U. My master's degree obviously was like 100% analytics focused within a framework of defense work. But yeah, there's problems that I tackled at at Manpower. And a lot of that was kind of overcoming people's misconceptions. Because Marines and the leadership of the Marine Corps would kind of get this groupthink where they think that the answer to problem X is Y. And all of them start nodding in the same direction, especially when a multi-star general tells them that that's the answer. And everybody says, yes, yes, sir, that's the answer. And then that just that filters down to the decision makers and the executors that this is the answer, make this answer happen. I think at Manpower, a lot of what we did, I jokingly called it tilting at windmills, because it was, you had to build a rock solid case that what some general at the Pentagon or some general within the Manpower building had decreed was the gospel was untrue. And you had to have a mountain of evidence to overturn that kind of groupthink and the decisions that were coming down based on poor data or no data. We had to aggregate all of the data to overwhelm that decision and say, no, this is wrong. So that was a tremendous experience there. And again, it was not a job that I was assigned as a data analyst. I was assigned that as an officer who is capable of leading this enlisted retention section. And then it quickly became apparent that a large part of the job there was, oh dear God, this horrible decision has been made. What do we do about it? Do we execute it? Do we try and fight against it? If so, how? So we won some, we lost some, but it was definitely it was a humbling experience, and it was certainly a very informative experience as an analyst. That when the big boss 3, 4, 5 levels up from you has made a decision, if you're going to try and overturn that thing, you had better have done your homework over and over and have your case built. So, but it comes from
awesome explanation. And when you say that it comes from everywhere and every instance of your life, I hear you. So when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, you have literally made out analytics, and you are answering every particular thing from your daily life. How? Let me just tell you. So if you are, if you join LinkedIn today, and after 1 year, you are actually measuring yourself in every particular thing. How many connections did I build in a quarter or a year? How much progress did I make? And how much engagement I have built over my post in the past 3 months or so. So this is, your holistic perspective of looking at yourself, how much progress I'm making every day. Is that a right observation that I've made in you or not?
Do I measure my progress every day?
I think so. Looking at your LinkedIn profile, I feel that you do.
I do. And I find that there's kind of a term out there that it has its use, but it's a bit abusive. And that term is vanity metrics. People kind of crap on the follower count, the views on a post, the likes and reactions, and call them, poo-poo them and say, oh, it's vanity metrics. So you shouldn't worry about that. I would pump the brakes on that. That's you shouldn't obsess over that. I've certainly had great posts that I was very proud of on LinkedIn that just went over like a Led Zeppelin, and they were just awful. Like the response was awful. I was still proud of the content, but whereas some silly jokes that I've thrown out there or dumb polls have drawn 30,000, 50,000 views, some ridiculous number where I was just looking at it going, why do people like this? I've definitely had content that I was super proud of that got 1,000 views, and I was disappointed that it didn't resonate more. But there's something to be learned from that every time. So, and most of the time, again, being an analyst, you can trace it back to something. Sometimes I took a post that was great content and I released it an hour or two too late when everybody was at work already and they're not reading LinkedIn. Sometimes there were times when I messed up the pictures. I would attach one or two, never attach 2 pictures to a LinkedIn post. That's just gospel because it doesn't look right. But there were times when I attached pictures and when you look at the post, the pictures were just cropped terribly so that it was just a bunch of text or code or something like that. It just didn't look interesting, so it didn't resonate. Lesson learned, visuals matter, and any analyst should know that. So, if you're looking at them as vanity metrics, and you're saying that this great post that I was very proud of only drew 1,000 views and 10 likes, therefore I am a failure, yeah, then you're taking that to a bad place. If you look at it and say I got 1,000 views because I released the thing at noon when it should have gone out at 8, or I hashtag something I shouldn't have, or I listed the words YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook in the body of the post, so LinkedIn said, slap you. Those are things you can learn from. You didn't get 1,000 views because people don't like you or because your content is crap. You got 1,000 views because you screwed up the post and you didn't stroke the LinkedIn algorithm properly. So everything is a learning experience, and those numbers tell you something. Why didn't your post resonate? Why didn't people like it? Maybe you gave it a terrible opening line and nobody was interested. Do better next time. So I think if you just don't take the things personally, and you just take it all as a learning experience, that's good. I had a post the other day that Michael Quinn, one of my mentors, dared me to post that. It just said, I assume all my followers are bots. Therefore, I don't have to regard anything that they respond to what I say. It's just AI stuff. And it's, it works on a couple of levels. A funny joke, I thought, but also it just says, hey, don't take any of this personally. And sometimes I get people just helicopter in on my posts to tell me that I'm a jerk or I'm being rude to people or I'm a terrible person. And you don't take it personally. I don't really think they're bots. I'm sure some of them are, but if you don't take it to heart, it's like, oh, it's someone that didn't like my content. Oh, well. So yeah, if you don't take it personally, you take it all as a learning experience, and you get better every time. Measure yourself every day, absolutely. But it doesn't make you a bad person if your post got 500 views.
Exactly. Okay. So with that, I would take Rakshit on screen, and he has a couple of questions to ask you. So Rakshit, go ahead.
Hi everyone.
Hey, Rakshit.
How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you, brother?
Well, I'm doing well. So myself, Rakshit, I'm pre-final year computer science student. Harshil is the same as my batch. And I would like to start my portion with a very beautiful question. To have the max productivity it is important to have a analysis in the work routine. Okay. So how a person should increase his or her productivity through the analysis in the work routine?
How can you increase your productivity by analyzing your own work routine?
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay. So, I learned a ton of lessons from kind of professional productivity people. I love Ken G's YouTube channel. It's amazing, and his content is just fantastic for analysts and data scientists across the board. He doesn't do a ton of watch me code or kind of do a project along with me. He does a lot more talking about the projects he's done or showing you the products that he's done. So if you want kind of hands-on, here's how to do it, probably go elsewhere. Kenji is amazing at talking about projects, talking about the nature of the work of data analytics and data science. But the thing that I love the most about his channel is he talks about productivity, and he talks about the work of productivity and the learning of productivity and the tools that he uses to increase his productivity and efficiency. Every time he does a video on that subject, probably about every 2 or 3 weeks, and I just eat them all up. He is a great mentor on that. I've adopted a lot of the things that he talks about. Me personally, I love that there's a book called The Miracle Morning that just did wonders for me. I've adopted it. It's how I get up. It's how I determine my sleep cycle and when I get up and what I do first thing in the morning. I tweak it a little bit, but the Miracle Morning is amazing. And you incorporate some meditation or some kind of quiet introspection, some exercise, which I think is essential every day. Just I incorporate my kind of process of making coffee in there. But it's reading, it's writing. There's just a ton of things that just get your brain ready for a day. And that's when I also write out, the section on visualization. I use that visualization time to write out my schedule for the day. And I don't think I go into the same detail that Kenji does himself. I tend to kind of isolate blocks of time where, like, okay, from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I have 2 hours, and then I have these projects that I need to work on today, or at least make some progress on. I'm studying Danny Ma's SQL class. I need to do half an hour, 2 hours worth of work on that. And I leave myself some flexibility in there to work those things. But you fill in all of your meetings, you fill in all of the things that you can't drop or can't forget have to be in there. The stuff that I have to get done before I can go to bed tonight, the things that I have to do for my family, if my kids have a baseball game, et cetera, et cetera. But that's where I kind of orient my brain on the plan for the day. And that's really the key to my productivity, is that morning routine and building out my schedule and figuring out the things that I need to work on that day.
I have one personal question. Does waking up early in the morning increases the productivity?
It does for me. I was never, I don't know how much stock you put into being a morning person or a night person. For most of my life, I considered myself a night person. I did not like waking up. It was an ordeal for me. I would set, the times in my life, I would set 3 or 4 alarms just to ensure that I got up. When I first went to Ohio U, I had a habit of missing my first class in the morning. Yeah. So genetically, like from birth, I'm not a morning person. I'm not someone that springs out of bed. I have found that a lot of that is just positive mindset. And yeah, the Miracle Morning did great things for me. It's just, you go to bed every night and you say, tonight I'm getting 6 hours of sleep. 6 hours of sleep is what my body requires. And it's like a magic trick. You wake up in the morning at that time when your alarm goes off, you're motivated to get up, you're well rested. It doesn't always work perfectly, but yeah, it's the mindset is so much of it. And even just kind of programming your subconscious mind to say, I'm going to sleep soundly tonight. 6 hours is all I need. I will be up at 5 in the morning and ready to tackle my day. And like magic, you are.
Great.
Nice.
So
I have another last question.
Okay.
Yes, I have. So you have made a lot of hustle in your life, no? And you are currently doing it also. So to do such a hustle, you cannot be doing continuous procrastinating or other kind of stuff. So how to remain focused and to overcome the procrastination?
I'm sorry, what was it? I've done a lot of what in my life?
So I would
You have
repeat
done
his
a lot
question.
in your life. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
So I would repeat his question. He's asking basically, you have done a lot in your life. It requires a lot of focus and being consistent about things. So how do you basically, how do you basically remove yourself from procrastinating things, or, coming down to decisions and getting yourself demotivated a little bit? So that's what his question is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same.
So I have definitely struggled with that throughout my life. I still feel like I struggle with it today. Just in hindsight, I don't procrastinate nearly as much as I used to. I had a very kind of self-destructive streak early in my life where I would sort of torpedo projects and just almost fail intentionally. And I would procrastinate to the point where I knew I couldn't get the job done properly, and then just scramble and do a mediocre job. Don't recommend that. I think if you take an analytical mindset to it, if you procrastinate on something, there's a reason for that. And if you figure out what that reason is, you generally remove all the power and incentive to procrastinate. So if you're putting off that job, why? What do you hate about it? What are you fearful about? For me, it was generally a fear of failure. And as a perfectionist, failure for me was it's not perfect. So then you get into the, well, why start at all? I mean, now you can kind of guarantee that you're going to fail, and then it's not your fault. It's just because you put it off. It's not because your efforts weren't good enough. So yeah, you get into that level of self-defeating mechanism, and it gets a bit intense. But yeah, I think if you just dig into it, why are you procrastinating? Why are you afraid of the task that you're putting off? And if it's for a lot of us, I think it's perfectionism, and I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of giving this my best effort and having it and being told that it's not good enough. And so, most things I don't put off making my bed in the morning. I don't put off vacuuming the carpet. Those are jobs that I don't enjoy, but when it's time to do them, you go do them. I think just figuring out why are you fearful? Why do you not want to do that job? And then once you work that out, then maybe you have a problem there to correct, or maybe just understanding it is all you needed. And you're like, well, that's not really scary at all. Sometimes it just takes what's the worst case scenario? And so it's, well, I've got this project coming up that I've been putting off. I'm afraid of failing and looking stupid. And you're like, okay, worst case scenario. I put this presentation together. I stand up in front of my boss. I deliver it. And he says, yeah, that's not really what we were looking for, but thanks for the effort. Are you going to be fired then? Are you, do you not go back to your job? Do you then become the company janitor? Probably not. He's probably going to tell you hey, you've got 2 more days to fix this, and here's your course correction. Here's what we need you to tweak on it. And then 2 days later, you look like a champ. So, I think when you dig into things, you generally find that there's nothing to fear. And that thing that's subconsciously making you put it off is not really that big a deal.
So, you know what? I have something. While you were answering Rakshit's question, it reminded me of a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. I'm not sure if you have read it before, but this is one book. It's really something that really helped me in my life as a teenager.
Yeah, I have read segments of it. I've not gone through all of it. How to make friends and influence, or win friends and influence people. I've read segments. Regrettably, I've not read all of it, but yeah, definitely on my list.
Yeah. So, if you are afraid of some outcome or results or something, what he says is basically write it down. Write it down, what can be the worst thing that can happen to you, and you will be over it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Having an analytical approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times just writing it out is the same thing with making a plan. I find the act of physically writing it out removes all kind of dread from it, where you're saying, oh, I don't have enough time to do this in the time allotted. When you write it out, you're like, okay, I can divvy up those tasks within the time allotted. I can get that done. It might not be perfect, but it'll get complete. And so, yeah, writing things down is, again, it's another magic trick that we don't take advantage of very often.
Okay. So, Rakshit, any more questions? Oh, yeah, good.
No, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me on board.
Sure. Thanks, Rakshit. See you. Okay. So, I will quickly address a couple of questions because there are so many questions in the comment box. One is from Commerce Dost. Wanted to know your views on digital dictatorship in the coming years that we would face. As they say, data is going to be the new currency. So whoever has the data will rule the world.
That is a great question. That's something that I think about. I'm also concerned with that. I don't think I've ever heard the term digital dictatorships. That's a troublingly accurate term. Yeah, I think that's a real problem. And I think it's something that, so my bachelor's degree, when I wound up getting to it after some time in the Marine Corps, was in economics. And so I believe in the power of the free market. And it's very interesting right now to see kind of the political division in the United States and how big tech is dealing with that. Some of the developments are troublesome. Some of them are alarming from a free speech perspective. But I think that in the end, the free market wins out. And so the things that I worry about are a government endorsement or a government backing of one tech channel or one company over another. That I think is the most troublesome thing. If the tech companies choose to do kind of political type actions, another company will spring up to take their place. And it's sometimes, with anything with the free market, sometimes it's a very difficult and painful transition. People do lose their jobs. People get canceled. People get, all sorts of bad things can happen to you now that can remove some of your voice, which is very unfortunate. But I think we also need to understand that we have a 24-hour news cycle right now. Everything that pops up seems like the worst thing ever. And I think if you just have kind of a historical perspective on what's going on now is not the worst political division we've ever seen. It was 150-ish years ago that my country fought a bloody civil war where more Americans died than in all other wars combined over slavery. And we had politicians literally killing each other and fighting each other physically on the floor of the Senate. What we have going now is not the worst thing we've ever seen. So the recency bias is one of the things that irritates me the most when I look at the news and I look at kind of popular commentary on what goes on these days with tech domination of speech and restrictions on speech. It's not the worst it's ever been. We have plenty of historical examples of when restrictions on speech were far worse than they are right now. It doesn't make it something that we shouldn't fight against and shouldn't be concerned with and be informed about. But yeah, it's troublesome. But I think I have faith that there are solutions, and that I believe the free market is the number one solution for problems like that. Great question, though. Love it.
Yeah, great question. Great answer to a great question, that I would say. Okay, so I have very off-topic question for you. So in your life before and after, 23 years focusing, completely on a different skill set, and now your attention to details and attention to things is completely different. So, how are you able to relate your previous life to today's life? Is there any relationship at all, or is just that a complete new start?
So it's tough to have perspective because I literally gave up my position as a battalion executive officer 6 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm actually checking the date in the corner of my screen. So it's ones of weeks ago that I was completely absorbed in the running of a Marine Artillery battalion. I'm sorry, what was the question? How do I leave that life behind and absorb my new one?
Yes, and is there any relationship at all between your life before and life right now?
Yeah, there absolutely is. I mean, just 23 years of leading young Marines and deploying and solving problems and training for wars, some of which happened, some of which didn't happen. That there are so many leadership, organizational, decision-making, procedural lessons that don't go away. And they're not markedly different now that I'm not knife handing and issuing orders to people with the force of a military rank. Now that I'm getting teams together, presumably in the future, I'm trying to get buy-in. There's very little difference, and I think that the difference is kind of overplayed when people talk about the difficulty of transitioning out of the military. There aren't that many people in the military that are constantly foot stomping, knife handing, and screaming orders at people. Most of us we're building teams. We're gaining buy-in. We're using some sort of kind of diplomatic leadership style. And then, that's kind of the last tool in your toolbox is screaming obscenities and saying this is an order. And so we don't like to bust that one out too often, even in the Marine Corps. I can't remember the last time I really had to yell at somebody with good purpose, but it's not as difficult a transition, I think, as it's made out to be. Sometimes I get people who are nice enough to pull me aside and say, hey, the way you delivered that instruction or that speech was a little martinet, a little disciplinarian, and so I appreciate those. I trimmed that back, but yeah, I think I adapt pretty well generally. I think most people do. You grow your hair out, you grow a beard, you throw out all your MREs and field rations for the uninitiated, and you move on.
Okay. So my next question was along the same lines. So, a military person that we visualize as civilians is somebody who has a flat face, who is very disciplined, who is strict, who is, somebody will never, who will not indulge a lot in talks or a lot of that. So do you feel you were anyways like that before, or you had to change a lot? You had to be, you were an introvert before, and now you are trying to be an extrovert. Is there any such a natural difference that you are trying to bring?
Like I said, for most of us, it's not that big of a difference. I mean, you look at some of those pictures from Iraq. The team that we had there was all, we did not have young Marines there. We had all kind of experienced Marines, some young officers, but we were all generally on a first name basis with each other. We were all kind of equivalent rank. And you see all of our pictures we're all smiling. We're all trying to make light of a bad situation where our food wasn't great. And, we had to do weird missions at all hours of the day and night. And there was stress there, but it was a team. And so a surprising number of military assignments it's not like it is in the movies where you're all in a squad bay and there's one staff sergeant yelling orders and there's one lieutenant commanding. And most of military life, even in the Marine Corps, which is the most like that, is not like that. Like I said, you're in teams. You're being diplomatic with each other. You're gaining buy-in. And you spend a lot of time together. Deployments, you are together with your team, however big or small it is, pretty much 24/7. The only time you get away from them is when you're sleeping. And so you have to learn to get along on a personal level and not on a do as I say right now kind of level. Because you drive yourself crazy if you're like that all the time. So there's a bit of that, but there's far more just getting along, living together, working as a team, and communicating, which is a lot like civilian life.
No, that's awesome. It's like, diving into military life, maybe virtually, we haven't lived it. So listening from you is a very new and fresh experience for all of us. So next question from the people who have joined us. How do you exclude some data? How do you get rid of statistical outliers and things like that? Decide which one are actual outliers. Very data-based question. So,
man, Seth, that is, that's an age-old question. I think he set me up here. He kind of already knows the answer to this. It's business context. You have to, and that's why they say you can't just be a numbers person. The data scientists, they have the luxury of being pure numbers people. And I develop this algorithm, it makes this prediction, I tell you what it's going to be, and then I walk away. And that's why I think there's kind of a growing divide of what kind of people become data analysts and data kind of communicators and journalists and all that sort of thing, and what kind of people become data scientists. For a data analyst, you have to understand the business case, the context, and the background. So is that little blip on your, way off of your regression line, is that an outlier, or is that something significant that you need to deal with? Well, you probably need to dig into that blip and figure out why it's out there. And why is it outside of your confidence interval? And is that significant? Is that can you go back and figure out how was your data compiled? Who entered the data? Was that an errant keystroke? Was it entered by a person that tends to make mistakes? Did you have like a snowy day in July that threw off your results that made nobody come into your store on one particular day when you should have had big traffic? You need to understand all of the variables that feed into your results and the business context, and search for a logical explanation. And if you can, the ironic thing is, if you can find a logical explanation, then yes, it's an outlier, and yes, you can disregard it, or you can say, hey, that's what we'll see if we ever get another snowy day in July. If you can't figure it out, then I think ethically you have to include it in your results. So yeah, if there's no explanation, then you have to assume it's not an outlier.
Okay. So next question is your advice for kids in terms of how they should live their life, what their mission should be.
Wow. How much time do we have?
We have.
Kids. What are we talking about, kids? Are we talking about like teenagers?
Yes, I mean, once they are in their senses, 13, 14.
Okay. I think the thing that I stress with my sons is the thing that I feel like I was lacking in my instruction when I was a kid, which is the most important commodity you have is time. And anything that you start doing consistently when you are a kid, meaning, just kind of high school age, I would say, if you incorporate something into your life, if you internalize the fact that I'm a lifelong learner and some part of every day needs to be devoted to learning a skill, some part of every day needs to be devoted to fitness, some part of every day needs to be devoted to sort of introspection and free thought, absent any electronic media, games, social media, movies, that sort of thing. I think those things that you internalize then will be hardwired into your DNA for the rest of your life. And those are great things to have. I think that the thing I try and stress with my kids, sometimes it's a friendly reminder and sometimes it's, delivered in a more stringent kind of military-ish way of speaking, is do something productive with your day. Your day should never be wall-to-wall video games, wall-to-wall movies, sleeping till noon. That's never a good thing. It's never necessary. And you never get those days back. And so the number of things that I wish I had started at a young age, being responsible with my finances, for one, took me a lot of years to correct. And just having kind of long-term goals that I was working towards. Any of those habits are worthwhile. But I think just having a cognizance of wasting time, and don't piss your time away, because you never get it back.
That's awesome answer. But I have one question. When kids are in their teenage, like 13, 14, they believe that they are the best. Whatever they are thinking, it's the right optimum thing that they are thinking. So how do you make sure you feed your perspective and your way of life or your thought process into their heads so they take it correctly and in the way you want them to?
So I just explain my line of thinking to them. And I think the thing where this comes up the most these days, and I really kind of, for me, it's sad for the current generation. I know it's this way in America right now in a lot of places. I don't know how it is around the world, but kids identify very strongly with their politics. And they know in high school, early on, like 14, 15 years old, they know this person's a conservative, this person's a liberal. We had almost no cognizance of that when I was that age. Barely cognizant of it when I was in college. And that was really only for the people that were very politically active, which was honestly a minority of the people that I knew. They're very conscious of it right now. And I think that's unfortunate because I think it robs them of a little bit of just kids being kids. Yeah, I would say just I regret that, and I wish that there was more. I encourage them to be more accepting of opposing viewpoints or just different viewpoints. So it shouldn't probably cast it as opposing, but I just explained to them, well, here's my way of thinking, and here's why. And then always try and reiterate, you're free to make your own decisions. At some point, I fully expect some or all of them to come home from college and say, Dad, I think you're full of crap. And I've learned a new thing and you're dead wrong, which is fine. I mean, I won't be dead wrong. I'll still be right. But, they're free to deviate from the dad-approved path at any point. But I just explained to them, like, look, this is why I think this way. It's logical based on my life experience. And if you have a different life experience, which they will, decide something different. And then eventually you'll grow up and come back around to my way of thinking.
Awesome. Okay. So my next question is, how do you strategize your social media skills? Is that something, is there any strategy that you follow for your personal branding?
Originally, no. I just sort of stumbled through it. And the birth of my social media stuff was a challenge from Michael Quinn, a retired Army Sergeant Major who is just kind of a LinkedIn guru and offers these webinars to transitioning military for free. And he threw out kind of this off-the-cuff challenge one time. And he said, hey, if you post every day for 30 days on LinkedIn, I'll send you a free t-shirt. And it was just something he made up on the fly. And I think he eventually gave away enough free t-shirts that he might have regretted starting that. But it really gained a lot of popularity and attention on him and his organization and on me, because I was one of the first, if not the first, to actually complete it, but certainly the first to kind of capitalize on it from a LinkedIn and branding perspective. So I talked about it throughout the 30-day challenge. I posted every day for 30 days. I tried to make them all worthwhile posts. So I tried to make as many of them original content, something that I had written, or at least kind of a joke that I had made up and a picture or something if it was a day when I didn't have a lot of mental energy to devote to it. But I did it every day for 30 days. And then at the end of it, I kind of celebrated it, sent me my free t-shirt. I did a picture with the t-shirt, talked about all of the kind of increased connections that I had. And I posted a graph. And it was, I don't know if the basic LinkedIn membership gets this. I know that the LinkedIn Premium, you get these, but it's the graph that shows your views over time. And really, it's one of the few. LinkedIn Analytics is not great. There's plenty of people complaining about that, but it's one of the few useful analytical tools that LinkedIn gives you. And again, some people dismiss it as a vanity metric. It shows if your content is resonating. And I saw that my views ticked up every time I went to a networking seminar. My views ticked up slightly in that week. And then when I started doing that challenge, you see the graph kind of bumps along at the 50 or 75 views a week. And then when that challenge started, it went up into the hundreds, which the funny thing is now those numbers are kind of pedestrian with the number of followers. But if you look at my graph now, it's bigger numbers on the y-axis, but it kind of bumps along and there's no kind of impressive hockey stick effect on there. I published that graph and that got a ton of views, a ton of attention. It was reposted by the USO Transitions people, by Mike Quinn. It gained the attention of John David with the podcast, and got me a guest spot on the podcast. And so that just shows the power of a visualization and how it's presented, because the numbers are not terribly impressive, but the visual is incredible. And so that 30-day challenge was what really kind of molded me, because I just went through all sorts of little A/B testing, what times work, what content works, what hits, what doesn't. Just looking at the feedback metrics and saying, okay, let's do that again. Let's never do that. And it's just carried forward. The learning never stops with that, but that 30-day challenge really kind of made me.
Great. So, we are towards the end of the session. I have one last question. So people who have joined us, if you have any more questions, please feel free to post. So about 5-10 minutes, we are more here. So that's it.
Cool.
So my last question for you is, when somebody, in India, if I take specific example of India, LinkedIn is something which is not very widely accepted amongst people. They just feel that LinkedIn is a professional platform wherein you can just tune in to look for a job.
Yep.
That's it. And they know that it's not Facebook, so you cannot post your personal pictures as well. So, to give a starter to somebody, from people who are less aware of how LinkedIn works and what kind of content should they post, what is your suggestion or some kind of do's and don'ts on LinkedIn, which you would advise to a beginner?
Yeah. So a lot of what I'm about to tell you, I'm gonna drop one more name. I've dropped quite a few here. So there's a man you need to look up on YouTube called Vin Vashishta, and he's a regular appearer on. Drop one more name, Harpreet Sahotaa's Artists of Data Science, which is an awesome asset, and great podcast as well. But he appears on there. He will answer anybody's questions. I advise anybody to go log on to the Artists of Data Science. They have 2 different times now. Actually, I think the other time is right about now. But they do on Friday, which is Saturday morning for you guys, and then Sunday morning for us, so Sunday evening for y'all. But anyway, Vin is a regular appearer on there. He is a deep thinker. He is a data scientist who's now trying to kind of market himself online. So you can hire him to look at your resume or any of that stuff. But his free content on YouTube is insane. I mean, it is just, they're short videos. They are information dense. And he has a video that I've recommended before where he talks about how to build your brand as a data voice on LinkedIn, what to talk about, and kind of touches on what kind of work to do. But when I watched that video, it's like 12 minutes and I was blown away. It is a step-by-step playbook on, it summed up a lot of the things that I kind of learned by trial and error. But it really just coalesces a posting strategy, which is professional, which is, it's focused, and there's no danger of kind of delving into unauthorized stuff. You're talking about your learning process, so it's applicable to people that are upskilling and aren't expert data scientists yet, or professional, like 10 years in data analytics, hooking and jabbing and doing the work. It's people that are learning. And I learned early on something that he identified, which is if you sit there and talk about, hey, I'm taking this SQL class on Udemy. It's really good. You guys should try it out. Here's what I liked about it. 1, 2, 3, done. That's an easy post to make. And that can actually get some value out of one of those, a MOOC course that doesn't have a project, that doesn't have a test, that doesn't, the cert is of limited value. It shows that you're interested in the subject at best. But if you're out there creating content based on it, that's almost as good as publishing a project. It shows that, hey, I paid attention. I can synthesize information. This Udemy course was 10 hours long. I'm going to give it to you in 1,300 characters, what's most important about it. That shows that you can communicate, that you can present, that you can absorb and synthesize information. Those are all key data analyst soft skills. and you're demonstrating, hey, I got the hard skills out of this course, and I have the soft skills to communicate it. Those are hireable strengths, I think. So he talks about posting about what you're learning, posting your background. You can put personal posts on there. Generally on Sunday, I give myself a bit of an intellectual break, and I just talk about something that my family's doing. My kids won their baseball game on Thursday. Post a couple of pictures of that. It's easy. It's stuff that I'm thinking about anyway. Earlier this week, I got to post about my 20th wedding anniversary. My wife is now going back to school to finish her bachelor's degree. That's awesome. So all of that stuff, that's fair game. I wouldn't post about, the stuff people put on Instagram, like, hey, I had this bucket-sized margarita last night at the restaurant. That's probably not good for LinkedIn. I wouldn't put that out there.
Yeah. So very apt answer. I would say, when you say my wife's going back to college again, so it really feels like an inspiration. Like you're never over. You are just reliving your 20s again. And that is an inspiration for me to look forward to, because I am yet to start my life as a married person. So This is kind of a pick that I'm going to keep in my mind for the rest of my life. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
Okay. So with this, I think we are good to call it end of the session. So it was such an amazing time. I am going to invite our two guests, which had really nice questions to ask you. And here we go. Okay. So yes, any last words, Rakshit and Harshil, before we wind it up?
I was jotting down every point and every topic that he covered. Like it was really amazing to get so much out of it. So yeah, from
Same as
now,
well.
the things that we got, it's really gonna help us now. So it's so much. So we cannot thank you, because it's so much experience that he gave us in a such short amount of time. It's really inspiring.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, guys. And thanks for
so much.
Really great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Any
much.
last words, Albert? Any last words from you?
I just thank everybody for the platform and the opportunity. Christina Stathopoulos, so I lied, I'll drop one more name. She is big on saying, take advantage of every opportunity to speak and to practice communicating. And so I really just treasure the opportunity and the chance to come talk to you guys. I love getting different people's points of view. I love helping people out. And so, I just was very excited to discover your YouTube channel, Nikita, and thrilled that you invited me out here. And guys, thanks for coming with the great questions. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So with that, I think you guys should click a picture of the screen. So we are, we can brag it here and there because that's a special moment for me. So super excited. So, okay. So with that, I think we are winding it off. So Albert, please stay in touch because some gem of people you get once in a while, and I just don't want to lose any of them. So you are one of them. Okay.
Absolutely. For sure.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have a great Sunday.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.